It's 8:33 right now, and Mayor Eric Adams releasing an updated fiscal plan to make New York safer and more affordable. Among the changes, hundreds of new police officers and adding funds to the cash assistance program, which helps families with things like rent, utilities, and food.
So with us right now to talk more about it, City Councilman Justin Brannan, who also is the chair of the Finance Committee. So great to have you back here. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure, guys.
So before we get to some of the budgetary talks, which was supposed to be the highlight of yesterday's press conference, I want to get your thoughts on a couple other things, beginning with the City of Yes program, which obviously is to create tens of thousands of new housing units across the city. Back in June, when we spoke to you, you said you were going to be a no vote on it, but there's been some tweaks and adjustments to it. So how are you looking at it now, and how are you going to vote?
Look, I think it's important to understand that New York City ultimately is a city of neighborhoods, and a one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work. And, you know, part of the reason why you've got 51 city council members is because we all represent our own little districts, and we have to first and foremost make sure that whatever we're doing makes sense for our districts. So, but I think over the past couple of months, we've been able to negotiate the plan to get to a place that is that's going to be a decent place where we're going to be able to enable the creation of more units of affordable housing, just housing in general, but also you ignore contextual zoning. Where people don't want to see a skyscraper on a block of row houses, right? And I would never vote for something like that. So, but look, we have a very simple supply and demand problem in the city, right? The rent is too high because we don't have enough places for people to live. So you have to create more housing, but you have to do it in a way that makes sense and that doesn't scare people that bulldozers are going to come for their one-family homes. Like, that's not what we're looking to do.
So you're a yes vote now?
As it stands right now, I'm leaning yes.
Okay.
Okay, now let's talk to the budget. Switch gears here a little bit. We want to talk to you about how the budget will impact the NYPD, but first, before we get to that, your feelings on the mayor's new appointment for the commissioner, Jessica Tisch.
Sure. Look, Jesse's great. She's a friend, super responsive, which for an elected official, that's the most important thing, right? That when you call a commissioner, they pick up the phone. I think she wakes up thinking outside the box, which I appreciate. Look, I think it's always going to be tough in the FDNY, NYPD, sanitation. Typically, they rise through the ranks, right? So the leaders of these agencies are typically folks who have worked their way up, and it's tough. It's tough to break through that kind of culture, and I understand that. But I think Jessie, look, she did almost a dozen years in the police department. I also think for what we're dealing with right now in the city, Jessie is incorruptible, and I think that's what we need right now. You know, she's independent, she's incorruptible. I think she's going to be a breath of fresh air, and I look forward to working with her. She and I work very closely as in her role as sanitation commissioner, so I look forward to seeing what she's going to bring to the department. And I appreciate anybody that says, look, just because this is the way something's always been done, that doesn't mean that that's the way we need to continue doing it. So, and I think she has that same vision, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's a great point that you bring up, just thinking out, because some people don't want the status quo all the time of somebody who might be a career politician. You yourself weren't a politician before you were a councilman.
Right. I mean, you know, I was a punk rock kid, right? I was in a band, you know, touring the world. And I think I got into politics because I saw the way the status quo was working. This is not working. And no one was challenging it because they were afraid to upset the apple cart. And that's not what this moment calls for. It calls for someone who's willing to be independent.
Yeah, and the mayor is hoping to have 1,600 more officers reporting to her.
That's right.
How's that going to happen?
Well, so look, the mayor just put out his November budget plan. It's almost $3 billion more than the plan we passed back in June. Just as the city council predicted, the migrant crisis did not bankrupt or destroy the city. And a lot of these cuts that were made that are now being restored were never necessary in the first place. I was running for office last year talking to voters, and they were going, oh my God, the mayor's firing the police because of the migrants. That was never the case. It was never going to happen. And now we're seeing that that's reality. But our concerns with this plan is that there's a lot of spaces where it's blind to some of the cuts that we saw that still need to be restored.
Like?
The Parks Department, okay? Our parks are literally on fire, and the Parks Department right now is down about $62 million in cuts. They've been cut and cut and cut, and they're down almost 1,000 staffers. There's no way that an agency can work at its top performance when they're down 1,000 staffers, and they're not the only agency that's super skeletal right now, and that's where a lot of this money should be going. Appreciate the cops. A lot of my colleagues would love to see more cops on the street. Great, but that can't be the only thing we're doing here.
Yeah, I mean, but could it be that going that way because public safety is top of mind for so many, right? So more cops, but also there's this issue with mental health on the streets. We just saw it this past week with the triple stabbing, right? So is there more money for the mental health crisis that's going on, or is that an area that might be lacking?
So there's investment made in Bellevue Hospital, which we appreciated. There is some good stuff in this plan. I'm not going to lie. But the council stance is that none of these cuts were necessary in the first place. And
isn't that over?
Well, it's over, but now we're seeing that all these cuts that were made, they never had to cut the cadet classes. They never had to do this stuff.
Yeah.
So we're saying the migrant crisis was never going to bankrupt the city. That was nonsense. That was a ploy to try to get Washington's attention. We didn't get their attention. They didn't come and help us with anything. But the mayor made the cuts anyway. So now we're saying, fine, if we're back and we're showing that the economy is strong, let's restore a lot of these cuts in these agencies, including in mental health situations.
And that's what we so desperately need.
Before we let you go, I just am curious for you.
Yeah.
You know, I asked you this once before. Are you going to run for higher office? Do you want to run for higher office? Are you running for mayor, comptroller, something?
Right now, I'm exploring a run for controller.
Okay.
I want to continue my service as chair of the finance committee, as someone a watchdog who makes sure that every dime of that budget gets put in the right place. I'm running for controller.
You are going to.
You are running.
That's the plan.
Okay. There you go. Is that an announcement? Or
Sure,
is this...
take it as an announcement.
We'll take it as an announcement. Okay, officially
Right here
running
on
for
Fiscal 11.
comptroller.
Sure.
Going to get a crowded
Right on.
field. Okay, good to have you here.
Yeah, you're always a pleasure.
And have a
Thank
happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
You too.